From Chicago, this is Bruce DuMont with our Beyond the Beltway analysis of national politics, featuring occasional injections of rumor and innuendo, all offered up by our panel of political insiders, pundits, power brokers, public servants, professors, and most importantly, plain-speaking Americans from coast to coast. Tonight, featuring commentary by Ken Mejia Beal, a Democrat. Also, Roberto Montano, a Democrat. Republican Chris Roebling, and conservative lawyer Judith Sherwin. Our program tonight coming to you from home base at the Museum of Broadcast Communications in Chicago, where our toll-free lines are open at 1-800-723-8289. That's 1-800-723-8289. If you'd like to email me a comment, it's Beyond the Beltway 2019 at gmail.com. And also, if you want to tweet me a comment, it's at Dumo, at D-U-M-O. You can also join us on the World Wide Web at beyondthebeltway.com. And again, when you go there, you not only can see tonight's show, you can also see previous broadcasts from weeks and months and years ago. And again, we are also live on Facebook, and we are live on YouTube. So you can find us just about anywhere. Nice to have you with us this evening. We're going to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk about some things that were discussed on some of the Sunday morning shows today, but some things that just very rarely were discussed today. And one of the things we want to talk about this evening is, first of all, a little bit later on, let me mention that Judge Jeanine Pirro of Fox News is going to join us. She has a new book called Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge, and she will be with us during portions of the second hour this evening. So again, want to mention that Judge Jeanine is coming up, and she was on the show several months ago, and she's, as you know, she doesn't pull any punches at all, and she'll be with us in hour number 2. One thing that we have discussed on this program, and again, it's sort of under the title of rumor and innuendo, which is sort of part of our discussion that we've had over 39 years on this program, is there's a lot of rumors and innuendo that go between the political parties and our part of political campaigns. And sometimes if you begin to pull the thread on a rumor or innuendo, you find real facts. And again, we've seen presidents and we've seen candidates for president somehow get tripped up by things that are out there. And the other day, Hillary Clinton, who has been in some cases a victim, at least she would say, a victim of conspiracy theories, she floated a conspiracy theory in which she says that she believes that Russia, they've got a candidate in the race for 2020 president. She didn't mention Tulsi Gabbard by name, but certainly Tulsi Gabbard responded to that. And Hillary Clinton began by saying that she felt that the Russians had a favorite, and that that person was a Russian asset. She also went on to say that that it was going to be an independent candidate for president of the United States, even though Tulsi Gabbard has said that she would not run as an independent candidate. She also went on, this is Hillary Clinton, she also went on to suggest that Jill Stein, who ran as a third-party candidate, Green Party candidate in 2016, was also a Russian asset, and that she would not likely step aside. Well, immediately after that, obviously Tulsi Gabbard, she referred to Hillary Clinton as the queen of warmongers. She said that she's part of, and her henchmen in the news, the corporate media have been out to get her and to destroy her. She even referenced that in the debate last week, and she made the comment also. She joined Hillary to get in the race. Let's have it out. So the reason I lay this out is because many times we've talked about conspiracies in this country that are being perpetuated by those right of center. We've had some conspiracies that have been perpetuated by those left of center. And I want to begin tonight with our guests, who are all establishment participants in the American political system. What do you make of something like that? And I want to begin with you, our Republican Judith Sherwin. What do you think? You're not a fan of Hillary's, but speak to what she said or implied.
Well, I am not a fan of Hillary's. I'm not a fan of Tulsi Gabbard's either. All right.
Yeah.
However, I think it is the most reprehensible nonsense that I have heard from a candidate. I mean, we have been watching Hillary Clinton go through a public nervous breakdown since 2016. And I think this is just an indication of how far she's gone. I can't even imagine where she came up with this or why she came up with this. And I know that because Gabbard has this different position on the endless wars in the Middle East, that a number of the Democrats have said things about her. I believe Kamala Harris has even called her a Russian asset, at least not as directly as Hillary did, but she's done it. So I mean, I really think the woman has gone round the bend. I really do. And
Roberto Botano is our Democrat. You support Joe Biden for president, but you're a longtime Democrat. What's your take on what Hillary said?
I think she's a private citizen, can say whatever she wants. I think Tulsi should send her a thank you because it sort of re-energized the Gabbard campaign. Gabbard's at less than 1%. The margin of error is larger than that. And she's just, it's time for her to do something significant. Or
But why do you think she would do it? I mean, she's on this. She did it in a podcast, a partisan podcast. She didn't
Yeah.
do it on network television.
Right,
But
right.
she knew that when you utter those words, I mean, they're going to go all over the world.
Sure, but it's a podcast, and it's not like mainstream media. It's definitely not beyond the Beltway, right? She wasn't here, right? So it's a throwaway comment as far as I'm concerned from someone who's a private citizen. And she already sent out a fundraising email, and so she
Okay, let's go to Chris Roebling, who always defends the right of a private citizen to speak out.
Yes, Hillary has every right in the world to say whatever the heck she wants to say, as thoughtful or as goofy as it may be. No one is contesting that. But she is a leader of the Democratic Party, and she is the immediate past standard bearer of the Democratic Party, and she's commenting on a campaign for president. She's commenting on one of the candidates in that campaign and one of the candidates who was on the ballot with her. So this goes well beyond just, the musings of somebody on their back porch while they're flipping hamburgers or something like that. And I agree with Judith that we are witnessing sort of, I think, a very sad, very long time attempt on Hillary's part to understand what happened to her in the 2016 election. And here's my 2 cents. Like the entire Democratic Party, it seems to me that the very last thing Hillary wants to do is listen to the 60+ million voters who chose Donald Trump and who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I cannot understand why the Democratic Party wakes up every morning and says, the first thing we want to do is not listen to anybody who voted to Trump and not try to understand why Trump defeated us and not try to understand what issues we were short on. And this kind of, I don't know, circular firing squad isn't going to get the Democrats
Chris,
anywhere.
I want to get Ken Beal and making his maiden voyage. Nice to have you with us.
Great
What's
to
your
be here.
take on what Hillary said?
So I want to.
By the way, you know what? I hate to do this to a first-time guest, but we're about to go to a break because Mr. Roebling, who tends to rumble and ramble, but you did a nice job. You completely cut out the fourth Democrat to offer their opinion. But when he comes back, he's going to have a whole segment to start by himself. I'm Bruce DuMont from Coast to Coast and Border to Border. Thanks for being with us tonight.
A line is a powerful thing. It connects the global economy to your living room, cleaner air to stronger markets, factory floors to less crowded roads, today's progress to tomorrow's promise. Norfolk Southern. One line, infinite possibilities.
Oh, hello. These days, I'm often quoted as saying, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. People forget that I was the first technology president, using the telegraph, T-mails as I like to call them, to communicate with my generals. Well, today, we are fighting a cybersecurity war, and our best defense is for folks to follow some of these tips when they're online. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Hover your cursor over links to determine the true web address. Look for misspellings and poor grammar, which are warning signs of fraud. Be suspicious of emails requesting urgent action, and never give away sensitive personal information. With malware for none, with cyber protection for all. This is your humble servant, Abraham Lincoln.
Bruce DuMont back in Chicago, and Ken Mejia Beal is here. He is a Democrat. He is a mortgage manager, and he's a candidate for state representative here in the Chicagoland area. And Ken, you were interrupted when we began, so give us your answer as to what you think this Hillary comment was all about.
Well, I want to say first off that to be a Russian asset doesn't mean that you have to communicate directly with Russia. You can be an accidental asset. You can work on your own path and still provide a service or a benefit to another country. And I believe that's what the tweet was about. Also, Hillary never mentioned her by name. If you make an accusation and you don't mention someone by name, the person that gets the most offended and responds to it is probably guilty. And that is my belief on the whole tweet. If that tweet were sent out, I don't know how many Democrats running for president right now. She was the only one that responded.
Well, is there anyone else that's running that conceivably could be a third-party candidate? Does that make her stand out in that field?
I mean, anyone could choose to be a
Roberta, what do you
third-party
think of that?
candidate.
Do you think there's any other? Do you think there's any doubt in your mind who she was referencing?
There's over a dozen candidates, but she was definitely the person that was being identified because the follow-up question was if the doll fits. She affirmed the suspicion. So
do you
it's
think
definitely
she's
her.
a Russian asset? Ken has described that he's expanded the definition of asset. I mean, do you agree with his comment?
The Russians have a phrase for that called useful idiot. I would say that the president is a Russian asset. I would say that he has given Putin more than anybody else, and that's who I would be worried about. If you look at Turkey, for example, Putin is now the power broker. And honestly, I mean, we spend most of our time as political operatives, because I was knocking on doors yesterday in Wisconsin, talking to Republicans, asking how they feel. We don't care at all what Hillary Clinton's talking about these days. We just want to know if we screwed up, if we didn't listen to you, what do we do better? That's why we had our debate in Ohio. That's why we're having our convention in Wisconsin, because we're going to those swing states where the people have an opinion. I don't care what Hillary Clinton has to say.
Judith, I want to go back to you. Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign, during the campaign, and Hillary Clinton after the campaign, have suggested that the Russians had their finger on the scale. Not that it was maybe the deciding factor, but it was a factor. Now, we've had all kinds of investigations, congressional and Robert Mueller, and they basically agreed. The Russians did have a campaign to maybe help Hillary Clinton or hurt Donald Trump or whatever the case may be, but they did have a campaign. I mean, I think most people would say that was a fact of life of 2016. So Hillary, in her mind, and she has backup from Robert Mueller, that there was a Russian campaign to hurt her. And so if there was a Russian campaign to hurt her, does that give her some special knowledge about what the Russians might be up to? In other words, is there a foundation of fact at the beginning of her conspiracy?
I think that Mueller's report was pretty clear that the Russians were trying to put their finger on the scale, as you put it, in the 2016 election.
Right.
I don't think
With
that's
misinformation.
With misinformation. I do not think that is any different than the Russians have done previously. They've been out to get us before, and other when they were the Soviet Union, and other American candidates have in many ways sought foreign influence on certain issues, and even from Russia, to help in that regard. So I don't know that there's anything particularly different about what happened in 2016, except that it has been useful to Hillary Clinton in terms of giving herself some sort of a feel-good reason why she lost. It wasn't her. It was the Russians. It was the
Right.
DNC who didn't support her. It was WikiLeaks. It was all kinds of things. But none of those people told her not to go to Wisconsin.
Right. No, that I
None
agree
of
with
those
what you're talking
people
about.
told her not to pay attention to the interests of people in Pennsylvania or Ohio. Okay,
But
Nobody-
does she? But
that
my
wasn't
question,
the Russians.
Does she have
that
some,
was her.
Chris? Does she have some credibility, at least on believing that the Russians? Okay,
No, here's why. If she had special knowledge,
Yeah.
as you suggest in the predicate of your question, then it was her burden to introduce that when she's making this otherwise irresponsible attack on a Democratic member of the United States House of Representatives who happens to be running for president right now. And so if she had some special knowledge, if she had some sort of proof or some sort of reason, on information and belief, I'm saying that I think Tulsi Gabbard, blah blah blah. That was the time for her to put that forward. Having not done so, I think this is just another episode of Hillary getting further and further into crackpot realm. She's sort of becoming a crackpot.
but again, within the world of intelligence, however, whether it's U.S. intelligence or the KGB, because you used to work for the CIA. Those things, there isn't any evidence. There isn't any fingerprints
Well,
in
then
these
why
cases.
is she
If-
making this comment about a Democrat in good standing in the U.S. House? I mean, I'm not a fan of Tulsi Gabbard, but I think that the idea that you start through, and this I believe is 100%, this is the fault, this is the responsibility of Ken and Roberto sitting right here.
Okay.
This is the Democratic Party of 2019, that somebody like Hillary Clinton can go out and just sort of casually say, oh, well, there's some other Democrat out there I don't like the trim of her jib, and therefore, I'm going to say that she's a Russian asset, and she may be in the same pod as this Jill Stein. So that's what the Democratic Party has descended to, I believe, because of these various currents of Trump derangement and Hillary denial.
Okay, Ken.
So, Hillary is a private citizen, and I believe she has every right to make a hypothesis based on running for president as a former contender. I don't believe she wasn't saying it as I have proof that this is happening. It was thrown out casually. Now, with that said, she is a private citizen. Private citizens are allowed to. That means Twitter.
She's a famous private citizen.
She sure is,
She
but
has
she-
to
Not
know
to
that
mention
when
she's the
when
former
when
Secretary
she
of
opens her
State.
mouth, I mean,
She can't do that with. She's completely
She-
irresponsible.
She also has freedom of speech.
The fact
Okay.
that Ken
Does
cannot
everybody
find
ag-
his way
does
to
everybody agree
denouncing
that she has-
Hillary shows the rot at the center of the Democratic Party that Tulsi's talking about when she responds to Hillary.
Right. I am going to say that Hillary has, I believe, twice at this point been accused of being on the verge of a mental breakdown or a crackpot. I do not believe that she is on the verge of a mental breakdown. I do not believe she's a crackpot. I believe that ahead of this election, she is doing her best to be a mentor to Democrats and the
She's doing her
Democratic
best
candidates.
to try to get back in the ring is what she's doing.
Do you think so?
All right.
Do you think that's what this is all
Absolutely.
about, Roberto?
Absolutely.
No, I mean
Like to get
Republicans
back-
have gotten a lot of mileage out of. She's sick. She had a bad episode on September 11th. She fainted, and then
Question to you: is this to go back to what Judy just said? Is this a plan by her to get back in the game?
no, not at all. Who cares? She's retired.
She cares. She's not retired. If that's retired, I'd like to
I think
see
she-
what she'd be like when she was
We're not the
she-
ones harping about Hillary.
No.
It's you guys.
No,
We're not
I'm sorry. I'm
harping.
sorry.
We were asked a question. We're giving a response.
that's
I
exactly
just
the
heard,
problem.
I just heard at this table
Uh-huh.
that if somebody in the United States voices the same opinion on some world issue as some Russian, either Vladimir Putin or anybody else, that makes them a Russian asset. That is absolutely McCarthyism regrown in 2019 in
I
an
didn't hear anybody say that.
absolutely
That's not what I
yes.
said.
I just heard I just
play the
heard
tape.
Ken say it. You can play the tape.
Sure.
You can unknowingly be a useful idiot. That was what you said, Roberto.
That's what our president is.
Just because, no, he's not.
Oh, I believe he is.
Just because he has a position that he thinks that we need to not go to war with Russia.
Right.
Do you want to go to war with Russia?
Let me tell you who
Do
the
you
useful
wanna
idiot.
go to
I'll
war
tell you who
with
the useful
Syria?
idiot.
We're at
War
war
with
with
Turkey?
Russia
What's
right
also-
now.
Can I
Roberto,
say-
just a
you
minute,
wanna know
Roberto,
who the useful
res-
idiot is?
just a
You wanna
second.
go to a hot
Just a minute,
war?
folks.
I'll tell you who the
Just a minute,
useful-
Roberto,
Barack
your
Obama is the
response,
useful
your
idiot.
response, and then we're going to go to responsible.
We are at war with Russia. And if you can't see that, I'm sorry. But, there's a reason that Mattis stepped down when we pulled out of Syria. There's a reason that
He didn't step down when we pulled out of Syria. He stepped down long before that. What
because
planet
of
have
the
you been
because he
living
was
on?
because he wasn't being listened to on Syria.
Oh, really? You know that. He told you, right?
Michael Flynn, well, you should read the book. Michael Flynn was at that same table with Julia Stein, right? So there's an argument there for Michael Flynn being groomed. And by the way, he's in jail. Giuliani.
No,
is-
actually, he's not
not
in
in jail.
jail.
Sorry.
What are you
What
talking
are you
about?
talking
What
about?
planet are
Can
you
I just-
people
hold on.
living
I was
in?
referring to
Can I just say-
Manafort. I was going to go to Manafort. I apologize. So Manafort, Michael Cohen, Michael Flynn, Rick Gates, Papadopoulos. There's a long list of people.
Manafort was working for Ukraine.
None
the
of
last
these
I looked.
guys-
I don't know what you're talking
None of this
about.
had anything to do with Russians. All of this had to do with issues prior to or post. The Flynn.
Didn't two of
the-
Giuliani's associates
hold on
just
a
get
sec.
picked
I
up by the
got-
FBI?
That's
Go
got
ahead,
nothing
finish.
to do with
That
anything.
has nothing
It's
to do
Chris
with
Roebling.
Let me
Chris
go back.
Roebling.
The useful idiot here. If you go and you listen to John Kerry in his speech to the Syrian Democrats who made it to the United Nations to discuss with Kerry where is the support for the Syrian Democrats. And Kerry himself says, and this is in his own words, he says, Barack and I thought that ISIS would induce Syria to come to us. We did not understand that Syria would turn to Russia. That is how Obama is the useful idiot. Obama is responsible for the Russians getting back their base in Syria, and they are now in Syria to stay, and we are going to deal with it for generations.
We've got to pause. 1-800-723-8289.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. They're the Monticelli family. From the town of Fairfield. Meet George Jetson. His boy Elroy.
With instant acceleration, electric cars are more fun to drive and more affordable than ever. Electric cars are here. Plug in to the present.
The economy is not working for everybody, especially those in jobs where unscrupulous businesses keep wages lower by hiring millions of illegal workers. Those businesses could use the government's E-Verify system to prevent illegal hiring, but they refuse. What's best for the country? Let businesses continue to hire illegal workers or require E-Verify, raise wages, and recruit left-behind Americans? See what voters want at everifyworks.com. Paid for by Numbers USA, because numbers count.
Bruce DuMont back in Chicago. Nice to have you with us. We've got four great guests this evening, and we're going to let them introduce themselves. And we're going to begin with our Democrat, one of our Democrats, Roberto Montano.
My name is Roberto Montano. I'm a Chicago realtor and big fan of the show, so thank you for having me.
Just very Natalie tonight. Also, Judith Sherwin joins us. She's a Democrat. Oh, she's a former Democrat. Doesn't want to be known as a Republican, but wants to be known as a conservative.
Thank you very much.
And you used to be very liberal.
Very
When we
liberal.
first met many years ago.
Right.
Anti-war, George McGovern liberal.
And I feel like I haven't changed at all. It's just the world has changed around me. I am Judy Sherwin. I am an attorney in Chicago. I practice litigation and commercial litigation. I also teach at Loyola University Law School, ethics and constitutional law, and I enjoy being on the show.
Good. Ken Mejia Beal joins us for the first time. Ken, who are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. My name is Ken Mejia Beal. I'm a candidate for Illinois State Rep in District 42. I'm also a writer. I'm co-chair for the NAACP's Climate Change Division. It's good to be here.
And you've run before, correct?
No, this is my first
First time.
I've worked with a lot of other Democratic candidates. I'm the former program director for the Democratic Party of DuPage County.
Okay, very good. And Chris Roebling making his umpteenth visit on this program.
It's my umpteenth visit, and it's good to be back with all of you. And thank you for watching or listening. It's always a privilege to be on Bruce's program.
Thank you. A follow-up question to you, because there's many people that live in Chicago. They know that you were a long time involved with the City Club of Chicago and have been an officer in the past.
I am an officer
And
now.
you are an officer now. And the question is, because there was a federal raid on.
There wasn't really a raid. There
Okay,
was
what was it? Who showed up and what did they ask for?
we had a subpoena was served on us.
Yes.
And like many other organizations
Yes.
in this very wide-ranging investigation that we all know about here in Chicago into our Speaker of apparently into the Speaker of the House, the State House in our Illinois General Assembly. His name is Michael Madigan. He's the longest-serving Speaker of all State House Speakers
Right.
and the Federal House in the United States. Madigan being in there for some, give or take, 35 years. So there apparently is a federal investigation, and like many other institutions and entities in the region or in the state, we received a subpoena, and we have cheerfully and immediately responded. This was back in May, and we have not heard from the
Well,
investigators.
what have they said what do they think you did? When I say you, I mean,
They said we're not a subject of the investigation. They
but
just
somebody
they were-
knocks on your door and they don't tell you why they're there?
they-
Oh, that's
they-
very
they-
often, very common.
It's a federal grand jury subpoena that emanates from the same place as all these others, and we were asked for documents, and we provided documents. We provided our computers.
Okay.
We answered questions. We worked with the investigators, and we haven't heard from anybody since the very first week of August.
Okay, very good. Let us go to calls. Let's go to Gary listening to us in Concord, New Hampshire on Sirius XM Satellite Radio.
Great show tonight. Great guest. I just want to ask
Thank
the
you.
Democrats one simple question.
Yes.
After the Uranium One scandal of $145 million going to the Clinton Foundation, and that was signed
Million.
off while she
Million,
was
not
Secretary of State, allowing them to
Million.
get 20% of uranium,
Right.
why are we thinking that the Clintons aren't the ones connected to Russia, and why aren't we worried more about China?
Well, I agree a lot with your last statement about China. You know, we have some concerns about China with human rights and what's happening in Hong Kong. But Clinton's sort of not part of what we worry about on a day-to-day basis. I would be more concerned about those folks that are, you know, losing their civil liberties in defending democracy. But we can talk about China, but Hillary Clinton is just not part of the conversation, at least not in our circles. But Gary, you know, I mean, why do you still think Hillary Clinton's relevant?
No, but the point is, everyone said Trump is a Russian asset, and now we've got Gabbard, a Russian asset. Everybody's a Russian asset. You know what? This is all what magicians do, and it's in a book the CIA has used many years ago from the 50s from a magician called The Art of Deception. Let's get everyone focused on my left hand while I'm picking your pocket with my right. The only people really tied to Russia goes all the way from Mueller to Comey to Clinton, and this is all coming out in the next few months.
If I
And
may
it's
say,
been out for a little while.
I appreciate the caller
Chris.
because I think I have consistently referred to the Uranium One scandal as a very serious breach of duty by not just Hillary Clinton, and it was 145 million. I think the caller said with a true heart billion, but it was actually millions. And the Uranium One scandal bears a lot of attention, and it's a situation in which many things went horribly wrong, and in my opinion,
Whoops.
Go ahead.
it conflicted out Rod Rosenstein for his role in the Uranium One scandal as the United States Attorney for the state of Maryland at the time, and it conflicted out James Comey, and it conflicted out
Mueller.
Robert Mueller. So the Uranium One scandal actually cast a very large shadow. And to the point about Russia, The only person who is proven to have colluded with Russia in 2016 is Hillary Clinton, and through her cutouts to generate the phony dossier, which was done so, I believe, it's on the public record, with Russian support. So you're talking about Hillary now accusing somebody else of being a Russian asset. I agree with the caller. All of the evidence in the balance indicates that Hillary is the one who's been soft on Russia.
Do you think, I'm going to ask our Democrats, do you think that each presidential candidate should be asked what they think of Hillary's charges
Absolutely
against one
not.
of their candidates?
No. I think the questions that these Democratic candidates should be asked are about our economy, about the way we are going to move forward as a country, how we're going to unite as a country because we're completely divided, what we're going to do about healthcare, infrastructure. We have bridges that are falling apart.
But they are being asked about those questions.
I think those should be the questions that they are asked about, not about a private citizen's tweet about Tulsi
When the
Gabbard.
It wasn't a tweet. It was
Or a podcast interview, or got it.
This,
I
this
I
is the
misspoke.
former Secretary of
I
State,
misspoke.
the
Wasn't one
former First
sentence
Lady of
either.
the United States.
I misspoke.
Roberto,
I could not care less about Hillary Clinton right now. I'm worried about Iowa. I'm worried about New
what
Hampshire.
about Joe Biden?
Joe Biden.
How badly do you think Joe Biden has been hurt or helped by the way in which the president has brought up Hunter Biden and his involvement with the vice president when he was the vice president? How badly has he been hurt?
I think
Or do you think he's been helped by it?
No, I think he's been hurt by it, and I think you see that a lot in the fundraising. He's at $9 million, and for the co-front runner, and the reason for that is that he hasn't connected in the small dollar donors. He just hasn't gotten any cash from the small dollar, and there's no evidence to suggest that Biden will be able to raise money from everyday people. That's a
Why
big
not?
problem. Well,
I thought he was a man of the people. I thought he was from,
well, I'm sure. I'm
Pennsylvania.
sure
Supposed to get you.
the kid from
supposed to
Scranton,
get you
the
Ohio
kid
and
from Scranton will
Pennsylvania.
carry Pennsylvania for sure if he's a nominee, and I
For
believe
sure?
if
For
he's
sure?
if he's a
If he
nominee,
can't- If he can't raise money from those very people, why are they going to vote for him?
well, because everybody's on a wait and see to see who the nominee is. But who's doing? So my opinion is that Biden's is hurt, to answer your question, because there's this cloud around him. Now I'm still with Biden, but I'm giving a hard look to Buttigieg. I'm looking at him because
How can anybody look at a guy who in the middle of the campaign has a press conference in his home city where he is the mayor? So he's the mayor of a city of, I don't know, maybe 50,000 people or something, and he wants to be president of the free world. Okay, that's crazy, but fine. Now let's take a look. There is a shooting that takes place in the middle of the campaign. A tragedy, a tragedy, a tragedy. He goes home and he then makes two inviolable statements. He says, I have failed in my plan to integrate my police force here at South Bend. Then he says, number two, those police who are here in South Bend have failed to take up my attempts at sensitivity training so that we will not shoot innocent people who are unarmed. How can you then say that you're looking at this guy to be the leader of the free world when he cannot manage, by his own admission, this is not some Republican, he can't manage the South Bend Police Department?
Because
let's let Ken
he
respond.
admitted to being a fallible person. He admitted to making a mistake.
Does
And more
anybody have
important-
to admit that?
More importantly,
Would you rather have a president who knows what he's doing or a
Well, I
president who
didn't-
can't manage
I did-
the South Bend Police Department?
Respond.
I also did not vote for the host of Celebrity Apprentice. So Mayor Pete does have experience as a governor. More
Governor?
importantly, I mean,
That's a
as a
governor?
mayor, I misspoke again, as a mayor. However,
But there's
after,
a question as to,
after
the question is that Chris put on the table is,
Mm-hmm.
what does it say about his leadership
That
just when he's been under fire in the last several months?
that he made a mistake, and after he made the mistake, he actually did go on a bit of a tour to find and to talk to normal, common voters like myself to find out what he can do better.
How come you
He had
haven't endorsed him?
roundtable. I'm
How
sorry.
come you have not endorsed
I
him?
have not endorsed anyone for president because I'm still taking the approach of waiting and seeing and doing my due diligence.
What are you waiting for?
I'm
Is it because you're running for office and you don't want people who disagree with you on who your
But you're
choice
probably
is?
busy when you're running for office on your
Correct.
campaign, for one.
and I think as a
And,
candidate, you
yeah,
have to be. I mean, to be completely honest, I am focused 99% of the time on my
course,
campaign
of course.
myself. I don't want to publicly say something and then there's a crazy news article that I just haven't gotten a chance to read, to be completely honest with
But
you.
Pete's raised $23 million this quarter.
Well, I know that.
And that shows the markets are rallying behind him. He's number 2 on everybody's dance card for the Iowa caucus, which is not winner take all, right? And so
But he's not doing well with African American voters. He's at like 2%, and I don't know how you win the Democratic nomination,
How
or
can
let
you be
alone
a Democrat nominee
gotta-
and not have strong support in the African American community?
we got to pause.
that bodes well for
Back
Biden.
shortly for Chicago.
When CSX moves forward, so do the rest of us.
Dallas, St. Louis, Nashville, Tuscaloosa. All major cities to feel the destruction caused by a direct hit from a tornado. Is Chicago next? It's not a question of if, but when, and the clock is ticking. Learn what to do now at ready.illinois.gov to become tornado ready.
Let's go to calls. Rodney listening to us in Nobel, Oklahoma on Sirius XM satellite radio. Go ahead.
Hello, Bruce, and thanks for having me on. It's a great show.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. One of the things that I've been interested in lately and reading a lot about is how both sides of what I would call the Kool-Aid drinking sides, the left and the right, but particularly the right with Donald Trump. You know, I always wondered how Hitler got elected, or better yet, how somebody could stand in a Roman square and holler Barabbas, Barabbas. And you know, I think that's what we're facing right now, is we're facing a lot of people following a demagogue, and they're willing to believe any crackpot theory that comes down the pike. And now Hillary Clinton's even in on it. This is just amazing how rational thought is gone in America. But it is explainable psychologically. I mean, there's a book called Why We Fight that I think really is insightful. But nevertheless, it's incumbent on those of us who can critically think to say something about this, and I'd just like to hear your guest's opinion.
I want to get Judy to respond first, but I do want to ask you a question before you go. What's your answer to the question?
Well, I think that in many respects, the United States is going through a sort of mass hysteria on a number of issues. I think it's being stoked by political figures, and it's being stoked by the media. And I think that it would behoove us all to step back from the precipice. So I would agree that this is a problem. I don't know that I agree with the comparisons to Hitler. There are many reasons why Hitler was elected, and he was elected, that I don't think are necessarily present in our day. However, I do believe we're looking at a mass hysteria, and I believe that it is in the best interest of a number of people to fan those flames. And I think the question that started the show tonight is about a question like that was clearly meant to fan the flames, because not only was it aimed at Tulsi Gabbard, who, as I said, I'm not a great fan of, but I would defend her on this. It was aimed at Jill Stein, who I'm also not a great fan of. I heard somebody sitting at this table accuse her of being a Russian asset because she was sitting at a table at a conference with Vladimir Putin. I mean, these kinds of things are detrimental to our company and our country, and they're taking us to a place we really don't want to go. It's a very fragile compact that we have. We need to stop stepping on it.
How do you have the serious conversations about what's right and what's wrong with America when anyone that steps up and out and says something that you disagree with is going to be perceived as an asset of somebody? Either they're a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer or they're pro-Russian. Right. And so how do you have those discussions? Because when you think about it, if you think about the goal of the Russians to disrupt, isn't this what the Russians want? Isn't Adam Schiff?
Right. They always exacerbate pre-existing contradictions in a target society. And they've been doing it for 80 years, and they did it before that. I mean, they did it before they were the Soviets, and they're doing it after they were the Soviets. I want to make this point, though, about the Democrats. I think that the Democrats have to own up to the fact that they are coasting, notwithstanding Roberto's statement, which I think is probably well-intended and true-hearted, that here's not waking up every morning wondering about Hillary Clinton. I don't deny that. However, there is no question to anybody who views contemporary debate and discourse clearly that Hillary's introduction of the deplorable theme metastatized into the irredeemable theme, and I believe that it is the first time in American political history that one side has said the other side's supporters are themselves irredeemable. And I think this is a truly epochal moment, because you're not seeing Trump say Hillary supporters are irredeemable or what was it? Deplorables. Okay, I think every Republican,
they're haters. He says they're haters, though.
Well, and there is a lot of hate going around.
Right.
But the fact is, they're trying. We want those people to vote for Trump, and the fear, I think, in the Democratic Party is that African American men are going to start voting for Trump because of jobs, and Hispanic families are voting for Trump because of jobs, and because they came here legally and they don't want to see the illegals getting differential treatment. But the point here is, Hillary says they're deplorable, they're irredeemable, and that is categorizing an entire 60 million people as beyond the reach of conversation. And I think that's a historical detriment to the Democratic Party.
We are going to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to start with our Democrats to respond to that. And also, we'll take some more telephone calls, 1-800-723-8289 in the next hour. We'll also be talking about some other issues. And we'll be hearing from Judge Janine Pirro from Fox News, author of a book called Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge, the 3 R's. Back shortly after news. Don't go away. And if you're watching us on television, we'll see you soon as well.
Welcome to the world, 2116. You can fly across town in minutes, or across the globe in under an hour. Whole communities are living on Mars, and solar satellites provide Earth with unlimited clean power. In less than a century, Boeing took the world from seaplanes to space planes, across the universe and beyond. And if you thought that was amazing, you just wait.
Today, fresh fruits and vegetables will go from a field in California to a grocer in Miami. A bottle of beer from Eagle Pass will journey to a restaurant in Manhattan. A 2x4 in Oregon will find its way to a townhome in Denver. A hybrid will say goodbye to Detroit and hello to a showroom in Austin. While a steel beam will leave a mill in Illinois for a high-rise in Phoenix. And a flat screen in China will head to an electronics store in Memphis. Because today, as every day, wherever you find business, you'll find us.